Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Welcome to today's episode of How You're Getting Fucked. I'm your host, Louis Rossman. One of the things I want to go over today is a strategy for anybody who has been screwed with by this particular move by Anthropic. Anthropic makes Claude AI that a lot of people use because they have a really nice harness for Claude code. For a lot of people, the reason they enjoy it is it just works. I've noticed that Gemini has the most information on certain things, particularly when it comes to how Google's search engine optimization, rankings, and algorithms work. But when it comes to actually having an agentic workflow that just produces something that works, Claude Code is surprisingly good. And I think that they're realizing this, and that they're realizing that they have a certain market advantage there. And as people were flocking to Claude Code, they started doing this shit that I just find to be kind of sloppy and underhanded. So in order to explain this, I want to try and make an analogy to something that more of you will understand if you don't use AI regularly. Let's say that your internet service provider charges you $100 a month and you get 100 gigabytes a month of data, but after you go over 100 gigabytes a month, they start charging you $10 a gigabyte. Now, let's say that you have used 70 gigabytes of your 100 gigabyte quota for the month, but once you start using BitTorrent, they start billing you $10 a gigabyte, even though you've only used up 70 gigabytes of your 100 gigabyte quota. And let's say that they don't even fucking tell you that that's why they're doing it. It's only happening when you use BitTorrent, because they associate BitTorrent with piracy. And let's say you're not even pirating something. Let's say you're using BitTorrent to download a Linux ISO, but you're still getting billed $10 a gigabyte, even though you've only used up 70 gigabytes of your 100 gigabyte quota. This is something that Claude Code has been doing if you have certain types of files in your directory, and they're just telling you, yeah, it may have been an error, we don't care. So there are people that like Claude, but they also like using their Claude account with other frameworks where it just may work better for their particular use case than Claude's own harness. Some people may want to use it with OpenClaw and other things. And if people who do that tend to have certain files in their directory. So in this case, this gentleman is talking about how if he has a file called hermes.md in the directory, instead of being part of his plan, it'll start going to what's called extra usage. Now, if you have a Claude Max plan, you pay $200 a month and you're supposed to get a fuck ton of usage. But once you run out of usage for a particular time period, the way it works is it'll stop working, but you have the option to use something called extra usage. And when you start using extra usage, you get billed an additional rate, but you're able to continue your project without being interrupted. And what he noticed is that if he had hermes.md as a file in the directory written with capital HERMES and then .md for Markdown as an extension, that even if he still had usage left in his account, even if he was only 70 or 80% the way there, it would start billing him for extra usage, even though the usage was already there. Now, I may consent to having extra usage in my account. It'll ask you if you want to consent, but that's also under the understanding that you're not going to start billing me at this penalty rate unless I used up all my usage. And he noticed in this case, the only time this was happening is if I had this written in there. And that's only going to be written in there usually if, again, this is slippery, but they're assuming that the people that have this there are people that are using Claude outside of their harness, and the people that are using it outside of their harness, they really want to push to API billing. API billing is where instead of paying $200 a month as a flat rate to get this amount of usage, you're paying every single time you make a query based on how many tokens you're using. And TLDR, that's way more expensive. The reason that I have a problem with this is if they said upfront, by the way, just so you know, because we see this file in your directory, we are going to start billing you at the higher rate immediately rather than actually allowing you to use the usage that you have for $200 a month, that would be one thing. But they just silently took his money, and the response that Claude gave was disgusting. They said the following: I sincerely apologize for the disruption you experienced with the billing routing issue. We take service reliability very seriously. However, I need to let you know that we are unable to issue compensation for degraded service or technical errors that result in incorrect billing routing. That last sentence over there. I need to let you know that we're unable to compensate you for technical errors that resulted in you being billed improperly. That's fraud, in my opinion. And the way that I would respond to this, and the way that I would suggest that all of you do, instead of simply filing a technical query or a technical support ticket with Anthropic, file a chargeback and then do the ticket. And I'm trying to come at this from the business owner perspective, is what would get me most likely to change the way my behavior is. And that's a chargeback. There's a few reasons for it. So when there's a chargeback, I have to respond to it with my argument. Regardless of what the end user license agreement says, the person that's dealing with a chargeback is usually an underpaid customer support employee. And that person, it may surprise a lot of you, but the person that's doing that is usually the underdog themselves in their personal life. The person that deals with chargebacks at Visa and MasterCard and Discover Amex is not somebody that makes $250,000 a year. They are not the Epstein class. They are not somebody who is looking to punch down on the little guy. Very often it's the exact opposite. In my experience, they very often, even as a small business, even when I have all my information correct and I can very clearly show this customer is just trying to milk us, they will find in favor of the customer. Sometimes that may be because they just fundamentally don't understand the industry. At other times, it's just because, like if I'm getting paid fucking $7 an hour, like I give a shit to defend the $1 trillion company. So here's what I'm suggesting to all of you. Instead of simply filing a ticket with Anthropic, the best way to teach them a lesson is to file a chargeback prior to filing that ticket with Anthropic for a few reasons. Number one, it creates friction. Instead of just sending this canned response, they don't have to log into their billing system and log in there and have somebody manually create an argument, manually respond to your complaints. If they do a canned response over and over again, the person on the other end is going to start to notice a pattern here and go, yeah, you know what, fuck that, no. And more importantly, if a company gets enough complaints, a lot of the times the merchant services provider will be open to just dropping them. And this comes up as part of the automated way that many of these companies do business, where if they see that there is a certain rate of credit card transactions to chargebacks, they just say this is not worth the money for us because it actually costs them money in order to process all of these chargebacks. And businesses will respond to this by doing whatever they need to do to not get that chargeback. I don't think enough people understand this. And I know that there is a lot of friction in the chargeback process itself. For instance, if you're unfortunate enough to use Chase Bank, when you click report a problem, sometimes it works and sometimes it'll tell you must call this number. And when you call this number, you are routed to somebody who is reading off of a script and life is miserable. I know it sucks. You may have a good credit card provider. You may have a horrible one. You may not know how to do a chargeback. Just trust me on this. If enough of you stick together, band together, and file a chargeback on Anthropic, they will be forced to stop doing this. And they will learn a lesson from it, I guarantee you. You can't do this. You can't admit in writing that your billing system failed and charged people more money. And here's the thing I've noticed about these bugs. Every time one of these bugs like this comes out, it tends to be in the direction of you paying more money if they suspect that you're using something outside of their ecosystem. If you want people to use API billing, just make it not work. Like, just say this tool doesn't work. Just return an empty query. Just return what happens when you hit a limit. This is sneaky shit. Where you're trying to say, oh, you have this file there. That file there, well, maybe it makes me think you're using something you're not supposed to use, so I'm just going, no, fuck that. That, in my opinion, that is bitch shit. And the way you respond to bitch shit is by filing chargebacks en masse. If you do that, I think you'll get the result that you're looking for. That's it for today. And as always, I hope you learned something. And I really hope that you'll put in the time to go to your credit card company's website, file that chargeback en masse, and get them to change their policy. Because this is bullshit. That's not how you respond to people. I can't respond to somebody and literally say that we fucking billed you improperly, but I can't refund you for our technical error that billed you improperly. Suck it. And you may say that's in the end user license agreement or the terms of service. Okay, let's turn that around on you. Now you got to trust somebody that makes $3 or $5 an hour that they outsource the chargeback process to in Indonesia or Vietnam or something to read that fucking 200-page terms of service. Best of luck with that. I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.